Hello and welcome. I'm Julie Fogel with i3 Verticals, and I'll be your host for today's webinar where we present our top 10 takeaways from CommunityLIVE 2023. As always, the Highland Software User Conference in last month did not disappoint, and it provided a great deal of information. We've spent the last few weeks distilling it down to create this top 10 list. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. We have muted everyone's microphones who are attending today, but please utilize that chat box or the question feature to ask us a question or share an experience. We will be monitoring these throughout the session, but to keep us on time, we will be reaching out to you directly following the webinar. We are recording today's webinar, and we'll share a link to the session for you to revisit or share with colleagues. And it is my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. Eric Willis spent the past 13 years in Highland's partner ecosystem, most recently serving as Chief Executive Officer of KiriWorks. He's currently serving as President of i3 Verticals Healthcare Division. Also no stranger to the world of OnBase, John Kenyon served as ImageSoft's Director of Sales and Marketing before assuming the role of Vice President of Sales for Government and Enterprise at i3 Verticals. And collectively, these two fine gentlemen bring more than 25 years of experience with the OnBase platform to today's conversation. Let's get started.
Thank you, Julie. And yes, it was a good time in Vegas. I think it was my first time there since the pandemic, and so it was kind of wild being back in Vegas for the first time with all the glitz and glamour of the city, and it was great to see so many of our customers there, so many Highlanders, and just to have that energy of the conference. John, what were your thoughts being there?
Yeah, I agree. I'm no veteran. This was my second, and when I polled my sales team, the average across my sales team was about 12 community lives that they had attended, but it did not disappoint at all. As a matter of fact, I think Bill Premer summed it up very well when he said, this is all about learning, sharing, and inspiring others. And I really believe that the theme of innovation was something that this year was covered in detail from the opening session through the Customer Innovation Awards. It really did not disappoint and proves that Highland is on track and is very much a leader in this content innovation space.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think these are these moments where you get the value of being face to face, right? It sparks, that you said innovation, right? It's that creativity, right? Ideas flow when you're face to face, when you're in meetings. That's right. And yes, the sessions are extremely valuable. The fun times, which we'll touch on, are valuable. But it is just those interactions, not just with us and our customers, but I love seeing when we've got two groups of customers who've never talked to each other before, sharing ideas, collaborating, solving problems, and that spark of innovation happens by just being together in the same room.
I couldn't agree more. We laughed a little bit about it, our team, talking about the fact that half of the week was being matchmaker, but that's extremely valuable to everybody, and it does spark that whole thought of innovation. And I in the last 2 years since I've been on board, have talked to clients and encouraged them to come to CommunityLIVE. And even though i3 continually delivers the most clients to CommunityLIVE, and we don't get any commission on it, we absolutely still have a lot of work to do, because I feel like there's just so much benefit for all of our clients that they can glean from those interactions.
Yeah, but I think, as we know, we would love for everyone to be there, right? But we know that's not always possible, but that's why we do this event, right? We want to try to, as Julie said, take 3 to 5 days of content and really distill it down to the things that we really felt were some of our biggest takeaways. So, John, you ready to jump into it?
I'm ready to jump into it. Let's go for it. How many CommunityLIVEs have you gone to, though, before you?
True, right? Yeah, I shared this when we kicked it off on Thursday. This was my 18th CommunityLIVE. So I guess, yeah, I really am a veteran in the OnBase world. So, as Julie mentioned, we really want to go through our top 10 takeaways, and And again, part of this is really for John and I to spark some interest, right? There's no way in a 1-hour webinar that we can get deep into all these topics, but we want to use this as an opportunity for you guys to follow back up, reach out to your account executive, reach out to us, and have that next conversation about what this could mean for you and for your organization. So we'll start off with number 10. This is one that's really for the admins out there, but it's an important one. So number 10 was the OnBase administration portal, really modernizing your configuration access. And this is one where there's always been this challenge, right, of having the full OnBase configuration, OnBase Studio, and do I really need to expose all of that information to someone that just needs basic document type access, whether it's security access? So what this does, it actually provides a web-based interface to allow access just those common configuration settings. So rather than having to have that direct ODBC connection or connection through Citrix, this allows you to have a web connection to, again, those simple configuration tasks that have to get done. So really broken down into two categories, right? You've got your document type management. So this is modifying and setting up keywords, document type groups, assigning those to individuals, as well as configuring those file formats. The other side is on that security side. So it's, I need to set up a new user, I need to modify a user group. Oh, John's locked out because he had too many different incorrect passwords. He's got to get unlocked. Maybe we just roll out a new product. I need to assign those product rights so that John has access to that new module that we added to our system. Today, that's got to be someone who has access to OnBase Studio, to configuration. And these are great tasks to be able to offload to something like your help desk, right? So that your OnBase admins, like a lot of you on this call today, you can focus on building workflows, building new workview applications, building things that add value to your company, and offload all of this administration task to something like your help desk that deals with this, like for other applications. Oh, I'm locked out of Salesforce, I'm locked out of XYZ, right? That can be centralized now without exposing all of the other components to OnBase to that group. This was first available in OnBase Foundation 22.1. They made enhancements in 23.1, and this will continue to be something they iterate over time. I just threw in a couple quick screenshots here so you can see. So very simple interface. I've got that left-hand side menu. I can click on keyword types, see my list of keywords. You can see at the top right button, I can go ahead and create a new keyword type. The other side of this, which I didn't touch on, is that you also have access to system settings. So you can go here and see what your app server URL is. You can be able to see what the access is to this administration portal for change control, etc. Again, this isn't going to replace configuration. This isn't going to replace Studio. Really think of this as something to augment what you already have and simplify it. This is also a really great one for any of you that are hosted in the Highland Cloud, where you struggle with being able to get into configuration and make those changes. This is a perfect one to be able to make those simplified changes without having to connect in through the Highland Cloud portal. So again, one for the admins, but an important one. So with that, John, I'll throw it over to you to talk about number 9.
Number nine. Any White Album fans out there? Sing on. Sorry, dating myself. So number 9, while not a new announcement to this group, is one that I continue to be extremely impressed with based on the incremental functionality being added to it, as well as the adoption that we're seeing across the customer base. But it's the OnBase for Salesforce integration. So this particular product is one that I feel like punches way above its weight in terms of value for cost, and we can get to that at the end. But there's just so much functionality that Highland has put into this, and the fact that you can get a robust application integration that's pre-built for you, that's maintained by Highland, that gets tested against Salesforce's beta before production ever hits to make sure everything is working properly is something that I think is extremely special. So what is OFIS? It's basically, as I say, a robust application that is designed for clients who are using both Salesforce and Highland that want to extend the features to Salesforce of what is able, the content services that are able to be delivered through Highland. So what I mean by that is everybody knows Salesforce is a leader in CRM. It's where most of the account management teams are working, but it doesn't contain all the data. There's portions that are not available within Salesforce, and those very important portions, things like invoices, applications, permits, bills, contracts, those types of things. That's what Highland specializes, right? And OnBase holds most of that content, structured and unstructured, including even emails that aren't communicated to and from the client from the Salesforce environment. So with that, Highland's made it very easy for our clients to serve up that information to Salesforce Lightning users in their own UI. For them to be able not only to view and act, but it goes well beyond that. Some of the functionality that's recently been released by Highland includes things like looking at workflows and launching workflows and developing filters and reports, customer reports, and getting all of those things associated with the customer record right where those account teams are working. If that's not good enough, what it also does is allows our customers to take extremely expensive storage within Salesforce and move it into the place that they know is the most secure repository that they have in their business, which is OnBase. So this one's really, as I say, an exciting one for me. The new features that have been released and it continues to rev. Include Salesforce mobile functionality. So not only working within Salesforce mobile, but using the phone as a capture device and being able to actually push that content directly and import it directly back into Highland. Print and download, provided the authorizations exist. And as I said before, there continues to be a lot of activity around viewing queues and launching workflows. So why should you care? It saves money on storage. It provides your customer focused representatives a lot more information that they typically can't get out of Salesforce. And you know, at $20 a month per user, and having Highland rev this thing, regression test it, and they're currently on a path of about 3 releases a year against it, you can't beat it. So
yeah, no, I totally agree, John. I mean, I think it's one of those ones where, to your point, I think we've seen the most amount of rapid innovation from a Highland perspective, with the way it's structured, the ability for them to quickly push out new releases. I think one of the ones that obviously you touched on, the value of managing that content in OnBase and reducing that cost of the data. One of the things within 23.1 that they also included was that migration path, right? So if you have already felt that pain, right? You've started putting there, you started to see your cost go up in Salesforce. We're like, okay, great. Well, how am I going to get it out of there? Well, there's now a utility to pull that out of Salesforce and bring it into OnBase, which makes this just much more of an achievable thing to take over than it was even just one release ago.
And have a single repository of record for the content, not duplicates that you're wondering if they're the latest rev or not. So absolutely great point.
Yeah. Okay, we'll keep going. John touched on workflow right in there, right? Being able to access those workflows from inside of Salesforce. And I know, looking at a lot of the people on the call today, a lot of you have been using workflow for decades at this point. A lot of you have been using WorkView for that long too. Some of you use WorkView to run your core business at your organization, but what's new? Or where's Highland been innovating from a workflow standpoint? So I just wanted to highlight a few, not just from OnBase 23.1, but even just some of the other recent releases. So some of these are simple, but they're meaningful, right? So if we look at something like ad hoc task display name, again, what this is that if I were a user, and today, for those of you that lived in configuration, right, when I write an ad hoc task, whatever I called it is what it shows into the user interface for the end user. What this allows me to do is have that name that makes sense to me as someone in configuration, but then create a user-friendly name for that task that's more intuitive for the users that are actually going to go click on it. So it gives you that new display name function. Within Unity personal pages, we've always had the ability to do workflow queues, but we didn't have the ability to do workflow queues that routed workview objects. So again, for those of you that use personal pages and for those that have employees and end users that leverage those workflow queues, they can now launch those directly into ones that are routing workview objects. You know, as we know from a workflow standpoint, from an integration standpoint, that's always key to a process, right? It's not always just staying within the world of OnBase. I potentially have to reach out to other third-party systems. Well, with all of these REST APIs that have been created, not just inside of OnBase, but in other third-party systems, they're in the last release in 22.1, Highland added the make REST API call. So directly from whether that's a system task or an ad hoc task, that user can trigger that API call, and maybe that's going out to that third-party system, maybe it's going out to a third-party data source, pulling that information in and bringing it into that OnBase workflow to help make that decision and move the object forward. Similarly, from an API task standpoint, is going the reverse side of it, right? So let's say within your core line of business system, let's say a status gets updated. Well, that update of status in that third-party system could then trigger a task to occur within inside of your workflow. So now when things are happening in that other system, you can create work tasks inside of that OnBase workflow to move that process forward down the line. And then last, within OnBase 23.1, I know we have a few, I'm just looking at some of the names on the call. We have a few users I know that leverage workflow approval management. I think you'll be very excited that now within OnBase 23.1, that is fully available in the web client. So for those of you that are in the web, all of those same features and functionality that you're used to within Unity are now available fully within the web. So for all those out there, now in the web. Okay, moving on to WorkView, my favorite. So a lot of these are really going to be user experience oriented. The first one really was the release of a WorkView specific client in EP3. So within that WorkView client, this is something very specific where it takes away all of the other clutter that may be inside of OnBase to streamline it down to just this specific WorkView application. So those users, when they log in, they're just seeing my work to get done, my cases that I'm working, and they're not distracted by the other components inside of OnBase. It gives a very modern look and feel to WorkView. So again, it's that first step forward in creating more of that application-specific interface for those users. But then there's more to that, right? So that's a fixed WorkView client with doesn't have a lot of configuration control with it, but it does meet a lot of the needs that people are looking for from a modern UI. But for those of you that want to get a little bit deeper, want to dig into and create a true customized user experience within your WorkView and low-code applications, there are now custom actions. So a lot of you guys probably know that when I wanted to do things like if this, excuse me, if this value is X, then show this portion of the WorkView screen. That was everything we had to do was JavaScript back then. Now we can use custom actions. So those custom actions that are just point and click configurable, where I say, oh, it's now this value, now display this area of the screen, that can now be done, or can change colors, things of that nature. So again, taking this, bringing this value to someone who doesn't have those development skills, but wants to build a custom UI for their users, you can now do that with custom actions. You can also choose to not display the ribbon or the toolbar, again, as a way to minimize that look and feel so that it's really focused in on the application. There's also new API script action buttons, but then two other ones from a UX perspective is you also now have the ability to do collapsible section headers. So one, you can just turn that on and off to say, yep, this section of the screen is collapsible, but you can also choose that default to be collapsed. So let's say you have an area of your WorkView app that there's just maybe secondary data that not necessarily everyone always needs to see. So to maximize your screen real estate, you could have those sections collapsed. And then when someone needs to go look at it, they can just expand it to see that additional data. And then there's been a long time the ability to do CSS and style sheets with inside of WorkView, but there wasn't a really user-friendly way to get to it. Now there's, I think, 60 plus different CSS style configurations for you to be able, from a front-end UI, configure to create that tailored look and feel of your WorkView applications. So for those of you that are on older versions of OnBase or have always just leveraged the legacy client, you may have felt like you were constrained by what you can make your WorkView applications look like. Here's an example of what WorkView can now look like with these simple controls. This doesn't look like OnBase, right? This doesn't, a user that went to this wouldn't know, right? I no longer have the ribbon. I now have a nice modern look and feel. I have these nice, clean, streamlined buttons. This looks like an off-the-shelf product that someone may deliver to your customers, right, and to your end users. So the power of meeting the customer's needs for you as an OnBase administrator are now more in your hands than they ever were before from a WorkView design standpoint. So I know our team, who does a lot of WorkView design from our enterprise solutions group, is really excited about this to create more tailored solutions. But I think for you as admins, you also now have that power as well. Okay, moving on to number 7, which is the introduction of the OnBase App Builder. You might be thinking, well, Eric, you just talked about building low-code apps with WorkView. What the heck is the App Builder? So really think of this just as a UI layer, right? This is really to take those components of OnBase that you've built in the past and give them a new tailored look and feel for your end users. So this is taking things like you've built in the past, custom queries, workflows, reporting dashboards, and creating a user experience that's tailored to the way they want to work. So if we think about this, right, it gives you that step forward to create more of those persona-based experiences. I can't tell you how many times I've in the past been in a demo and you're demoing something and someone from the audience looks up and says, well, hey, what's that thing in the ribbon called document knowledge transfer? You're like, hey, don't worry about that, right? And the same thing happens when you're doing training, right? People start navigating and looking around, asking questions, and you can't keep them focused. This allows you to create a very focused, tailored user experience for your end users. I also view this as a way not just to create this for your current end users that may already use OnBase. I view this as a great on-ramp to bring OnBase to new departments in your company. So for you as admins that have maybe struggled with, well, how do I get adoption within this new area? I don't want to teach them all this OnBase speak, right? You can now go have a discovery call, listen to what they need, and create more of that tailored experience. So if you look at App Builder, it's really broken down into 3 distinct components. You first have your screens, which out of the first delivery within 23.1 are really only 2 key things. It's your quick access, which is really much more of a dashboard feel, which I'll show you, and then your master detail screen. From there, from within inside that screen, you're able to deliver different sources. That can be a custom query, that's whether it's a folder or document type. Just do standard retrieval, access workflows, but also be able to access reporting dashboards directly inside of that interface. And then the third component are actions, which are just going to be, think of it more of buttons. I want to upload a document. I want to create a new form. I want to navigate to a different source. So let's say I'm on this screen, I want to be able to go to a workflow. Well, that can be a button to drive you there. Or maybe I need to launch a third-party application or go out to a website. You can launch that from an external URL. So if we look at this, this is an HR example, right? So here is a tailored persona-based application that is presenting on-base configured components that maybe you configured 10 years ago, and you now want to display it in a new way to those users, right? So at the top left are my different screens. So this is my home screen. I could have a request screen, documents. This area in the middle where it says HR employee files, that can be obviously tailored to what you want, but so can the look and feel. I could put a logo here. I could change the colors, like really creating that personalized experience. Then here in the middle, I have buttons to be able to launch new Unity forms to fill out an HR assistant request, missing document request. These counters are tiles that are showing me how much work are in different queues that I need to participate in. And then if I scroll down on this, I can see documents I want. I could upload an I-9. I could go do a document search. I could go, let's say I want to click and say, find employee. Okay, now I'm in here. I can go ahead and pull up my employee files. Oh, I want to see Daniel Caffey's. Okay, and now I'm right here into that employee folder. I still have those things that you've already configured. There's no new configuration with this. I have my folder template on the bottom that's already there. I've got my tabs on the right-hand side. So again, this is a very simple approach for you to be able to create that personalized experience for your end users that you know they're looking for today. And again, for those managers, be able to talk to them about, this is a way to keep your employees focused on the task at hand and to get the right content to them at the right time of the process. And John, I know that I just talked a lot there about apps, app building, new innovation, but also there's a lot of new faces at Highland, and I know we were both really excited to meet some of these folks. Do you want to share with the group?
Yeah. I mean, it's not lost on anyone that Highland went through some difficult times last spring and had to make the tough decisions to have some reduction. So it is super refreshing to see new faces coming into Highland, and these two individuals are part of the leadership team that have been brought in. Leonard Kim is Highland's new Chief Product Officer, reporting to Bill Premer. He came from ADP, where he spent 7 years, and before that he was with E&Y. And Leonard's job here now is to basically be speaking to clients about their needs, helping to set those needs in motion in terms of the products and the solutions that are going to be developed and served. He's personally responsible for the vision around Highland experience. So Leonard's got quite a big job, and I'm sure a number of you will be seeing him. We'd love to bring him out to site and introduce him. And he's now in learn mode, but quickly that's transitioning because of his strong AI background into turning into the products that will be delivered to all of us. Brian Schlosser, on the other hand, you and I have both met Eric and spent some time with. Very impressed with him. He is somebody that came in to run the partner channel, so he is reporting to Chris McLaughlin, Highland's Chief Revenue Officer. He has all things partner. He basically had come from FileNet and EMC and a number of other content management organizations, as well as being CEO of several companies that he headed. So Brian's going to be responsible for all the channel sales and alliances, all of Highland's partner programs, and as most of us are aware, over 60% of Highland's clients are served by the partner channel. So so we're excited to have Brian on as well. And I'm guessing we introduce these guys here because they are builders. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it's excited from a Leonard Kim perspective, because Highland's never had someone at the C level in that role, right? It's not that just Leonard, has filled in a new or an existing position. I think Highland took a step back and I think realized, with all of these different acquired products, we really need someone at that product and strategy level that's sitting at the C-suite that can be at the same peer level with John Phelan from a software engineering standpoint, so that those two people are working in concert with each other. So it's really exciting for Highland to make that investment in that role as well.
Couldn't agree more with the number of technology changes coming down the pike. I think his role is critical, and again, would love to get some introductions to our clients so he can hear firsthand the needs of all of you and where you're taking the solutions.
Exactly. Okay, well, we'll continue down the path. Number 6, this is one that, you know, has always been a thorn in the side for a lot of folks of dealing with PDFs inside of OnBase. Sounds like a simple task, but Highland's never had a great approach to it. And I think it was really exciting when I think this was presented at CommunityLIVE. There was a good loud clap in the audience when this was announced by the team. So simple feature, but really powerful for those that use PDF. So with inside the web client, there's now a native PDF viewer. You don't need any type of third party to be able to do this. You can do text searching. You'll select it, copy it, interact with that PDF like you could if it were just sitting on your desktop. If you're to apply notes, annotations, yes, they exist in OnBase. If you export it, it exports it with that PDF. Again, just like if you had a PDF viewer from Adobe inside there. But also simple things that you couldn't do before, but you can do now, like interacting with hyperlinks and bookmarks. So if you have a large bookmark PDF, you can now explore that PDF using those bookmarks. But also, let's say there's you know, John Kenyon's email address is in there. I can click that. It'll actually launch my mail application and be able to go forward from there. So go ahead, John. You see something?
No, I was just saying it's a very useful tool.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's some of the blocking and tackling that you need to have, and I'm glad that it's there for our customers. Here's just an example of what it looks like within the web client in our favorite dark mode. I've got, you know, highlights, arrows, circles. Again, all of those annotations stay with it at the time of export. Now, speaking of something else that got a big applause from the audience was that OnBase is now ready for the Outlook web add-in. So I know for us at i3, we're a big Microsoft 365 shop. I know many of you are big Microsoft 365 shops. And I know a lot of you are starting to migrate away from using the desktop version of the Microsoft Office suite, right? You're just going to office.com and launching Outlook, and that's now your interface. So now within OnBase Foundation 23.1, there is now a Highland Outlook web app add-in. The reason why it's Highland is that it will be able in the future to connect to some of their other content repositories. OnBase is the only one day one, but it allows you to do the core things you need to do, right? It allows you to import email and attachments and bring them into OnBase. Today, it is just manual indexing, but in the short-term roadmap is to be able to add some automated indexing components inside that panel. But it does run on the web, Windows, Mac, and iPad, so it allows you to be able to access that add-in from anywhere we're using that Outlook app. The only technical requirements is you do need IDP and API server set up, and again, you've got to be on OnBase Foundation 23.1. So this is one of those ones that's a good checkbox in your reasons for upgrading, right? Need to be able to get access to here. And again, very simple process. Once your admin says you can have it available, you can go out and just go to the get add-ins inside of Outlook. Then on the message, you'll see that little green H. When you click on that, you'll be able to click import message. You'll get an import dialog, be able to select doc type, be able to put in the index values required, and then you'll get a message letting you know that it has been successfully imported. Again, it is something that we obviously, many of you, if not all of you, probably have the legacy Outlook integration. This is really that next step forward to make sure that we're meeting you where you need to be, right? If you're using this in the web, we need to be there for you as well. So it's one of those things of just part of the journey to make sure that we can meet customers where they are today. And speaking of that, John, I know of the future, you got some exciting stuff to talk about.
This was really exciting. This I think got probably the most buzz of any of our topics at the CommunityLIVE event. It's Hyland's announcement around their new intelligent document processing solution. When Hyland talks about innovation, I equate it to Hyland's content service automation story. And this product in particular is the onboard ramp to that story. This is how content gets put into the repository, gets the data put in a proper format to be able to apply some of the AI and other things that that clients are interested in doing with it. But anyhow, what is it? It's an all-in-one, high-volume capture, classification and processing platform that helps by using machine learning and advanced AI capabilities to be able to improve the accuracy and reduce the number of reprocessing and manual separation steps that have been associated with these types of solutions in the past. As you can see on the far left, it's a multi-channel capture product. It takes in and uses OCR, which is something in and of itself that is using the latest and greatest, but really where it seems to shine in talking to the product manager is in separation and classification, so that really getting accurate results. You know, what makes it special? The thing that I've been told by Tim Talixon, the product manager, is that it's not only the usage of the latest and greatest machine learning and AI technologies to provide you that super accurate extraction, validation, and verification, but also this thing has an online predictive learning engine that's running in the background. So it's looking at the errors that are being produced, and it's going through a test mode and checking to see if it can improve on that, and will provide that to the clients in a way that they can actually run that online learning engine or that online correction to continually make it better and better in terms of its extraction process. So this thing is really, really exciting. The teams are going to training on it in a couple weeks here, and I'm for one, I'm extremely jazzed to learn more about this thing. You know, who's it for? It's you know, it's for any of our clients, really. It's this multi-channel OCR capture and processing that gives them the ability to really separate out and to recognize hand-printed documents, personal information, whether it be credit cards, licenses, anything that gets scanned into the system, and separate those out and recognize them. So it's, you know, it's insurance, it's healthcare, it's government, it's all of the core markets that we're dealing with. And on the back end, you know, the output not only goes to all of Hyland's platforms, which I will say also was a common theme that I saw across any of the new products and solutions coming out, that Alfresco, Nuxio, Perceptive, and OnBase were all given consideration, but to output can go to any other enterprise typical business applications or launch an RPA bot. So so it's a pretty exciting new development from Hyland, and more to come on that.
Yeah, no, I just to echo that, I mean, I think it's one of those areas where, you know, as I think, you know, a lot of our customers have been with us for a long time, right? So they've seen a lot of different iterations of capture in the world of Hyland. I think this is the first one that I've been a part of in a long time that it's well thought out. There's a cohesive plan and strategy. They're doing a great job from an enablement perspective, as John talked about. We've already had one of our sales engineers attend the training with the Hyland team themselves as they went through. We have 2 to 3 people going in 2 weeks, as John mentioned. So there's going to be a lot more content coming out from i3 Verticals on this. We want to make sure that as we learn more and see the opportunities for you as our customers to take advantage of this, we want to make sure we're sharing that. So expect of any of the topics that we touched on today to see more coming from IDP as we learn more and it gets more of a foothold in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't believe what we're saying or have been told. Challenge us. We'd love to come out on site and not only demonstrate the product, but demonstrate it in a way where we're using some of your own forms and providing the extraction, showing you the results. So happy to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, John, I know, these are the things that we get really excited about at the conference, right? Of learning some of the new technology coming down the path, but that's just part of the fun at CommunityLIVE, right? Part of it, as we talked about earlier, is being together, right? Is creating those moments, creating those stories, those memories together. So obviously, John and I kicked off CommunityLIVE and welcomed everyone at our breakfast as being one of Highland's top partners. But then that night we took and went on to Area 15, and it was quite the psychedelic experience. For those that weren't there, you can see some shots of the neon lights and floating up in the hot air balloon, and there was a lot of trippy rooms to go through.
Let's just call it the way it was. We took our customers to a rave.
Right, yeah, it was an adult rave.
And it was amazing.
Yeah, and it's, it is. It's just being able to, for those that haven't gone at all maybe to CommunityLIVE, again, as we talked about, this is part of it, right? This is part of it. It's that bonding, it's that connection, and it's just sometimes you need to just have fun, right? You just need to get loose and have some fun. But, obviously it's connecting with our employees and the things that we as i3 Verticals can bring to the table. But then it's also all the stuff that Highland does at the event, right? They bring in great keynote speakers. They do other great events, like they have their Casino Royale party. People like Glenn Gibson there on the bottom left, one of Highland's great speakers, rocking a tux, but he wasn't the only one in a tux. We also had John Kenyon, who outshined everyone at i3 Verticals, rocking a tux that I think was 20 years old, and you could still fit into it.
A good 20. Yeah, I couldn't breathe most of the evening, but it was.
It did look like you're rocking a cummerbund. You look like a stud compared to the rest of us. So, it was a great time, and I even, it is these unplanned moments too, right? You see Terry on the bottom right there, just having a one-off conversation with customers. That's the value of being there, right? Is being able to have a fun time, but then also, hey, I was just in a session and I just learned about this. Can we go talk about it real quick? Right? That's, we do these Zoom meetings, we do these go-tos, but you don't have that just off the cuff conversation, as we talked about at the beginning, where that innovation and creativity sparks. So yes, great time, good photos, but also good memories and stories to bring to future years. And now we're getting to the bottom here, John. We're getting into our top 3. So it's going to get pretty intense here in our last 15 minutes. So number 3, and this is one that we've talked about before. John just touched on it when he talked about IDP, was the concept of RPA, or robotic process automation. And our number 3 was really, that RPA is a critical piece of your automation journey. One of the sessions that I went to by Ken Payne had an absolutely fantastic quote in it. And that quote was, you don't automate to get rid of the human, you automate to amplify the human. And that's one of those things that I think RPA has had a little bit of this negative connotation of, well, we just don't want to go replace these people with bots. And that's not the concept, right? The concept is, how can I use a bot to improve the process and improve the work experience for that employee, and for that employee to have opportunities to bring more value to the table. So as you start to think about opportunities as admins and users of how to explore and use RPA at your organizations, think of those areas where, okay, maybe we've used workflow for, as I said earlier, 20 years, but there's going to be those components where you still leave on base. You still go do something that's a repetitive task that's predictable. Those are great opportunities for RPA. And even if you guys have maybe a enterprise RPA platform, leveraging Highland RPA doesn't have to replace that, right? This can be part where I'm just adding it into an existing workflow to add further automation. It doesn't need to be that I'm going in and displacing something like Blue Prism, if you have that, right? This is, I want to use it to augment and further automate what I'm already doing with inside of OnBase. One of the sessions that I went to was great. It was Funeral Directors Life did a case study. They also won one of the innovation awards that John talked about at the beginning today. Is they had a problem to solve, right? And I'll go through this really quickly. They had 8 people. They had this big influx of new work where they had to get through like 2,000 contracts per week. Their system was slowing them down. And more than anything, their employees were stuck working late at night, every single night, to get through this influx in business. So they could either go hire people, they could try to figure out how to ramp up their application, which is going to take time, or they could try to figure out how to automate it. And they went down this path of automation. They did it in a very short time frame. So they traditionally have always done this hack week at Funeral Directors Life, where they take their software engineering team and their OnBase team, and they give them a cohesive amount of time, week, 2 weeks, to try to create something new and innovative, right? And they learned about at CommunityLIVE about RPA, and they're like, well, maybe this is something we could use to do that. Again, an idea that John talked about where it sparked innovation, sparked creativity. They then took this idea of building a proof of concept for auto settling those contracts. In the span of 2 weeks, they were able to get it up, get automation going, and were able to present the results to their CEO on April 9th. And then by the end of the month, they got approval right away. They went from that one pilot bot to having 5 bots in production, and those 5 bots were settling 95% of their daily contracts. So not only did they get those speed results, but then they have the employee satisfaction as well, is that those employees for the first time in a year were able to leave on time on a commission day. So again, I want everyone who's on here to take a step back and start thinking through, where are these areas that we've already automated with OnBase, and what could we do further? Because just like at Funeral Directors Life, they were using OnBase workflow in this process, right? But they got to a point where, okay, now I need to take this to that next level. And there's some things I'm having to do outside of OnBase that requires me to do these manual tasks, but they were repetitive. They were simple. They were straightforward. And to be honest, they weren't tasks that people really wanted to do, right? So offload those to a bot and allow them to focus on the errors, the processing, the exception handling, where you need a human to be part of it. Allow them to get better experience to their customers, so refocus back on their end users and not just on getting through volume. So I'll touch on it at the end, but really, from an i3 perspective, we really want to try to reshape your ideas of RPA in the world of OnBase. It's been something where we haven't seen as much traction as we hoped. And I think part of that is really taking a new look at it, of looking back at what you've done before and how you can extend it by using Highland RPA. And speaking of innovation, man, you keep being the one that's got these fun topics. So, Mr. Innovation.
Yeah, it's just to kind of leverage on what you were saying. I was with a group of my friends and colleagues that I've known for many, many years from the law firm industry last week, and we were all talking about artificial intelligence and how it's going to impact our futures. And I think, everyone in the group had kind of come to the conclusion we faced this when computers, PCs first came out, didn't replace humans, allowed them to just move into more valuable jobs. They look at it as a way for them to up their game with their knowledge workers. If any role is in jeopardy, a first-year lawyer that's doing research is one that ChatGPT is aimed directly at. But the way they're viewing it is how can I apply AI to understand what the difference between a third-year lawyer and a first-year associate, or a partner and that third year, do to documents to make them better. So they're continually looking at how they can use AI to refine these things. And I think that's how we as businesses need to look at this technology and start to dip our toes in the water and understand and begin to find projects where we can see the value in really extracting the business content from the repositories that we've built up over so many years. So anyways, with that background, I am thrilled to talk about Highland Experience. It's something that in the past couple of years since I've been here, I've heard bits and pieces of, but I never really saw it. It was a bit like Waldo. There's been discussions that this was going to be a culmination of Alfresco and Perceptive and OnBase. It was going to be mashed into one platform to take the best of all worlds. And I'm thrilled to announce that Highland has put a lot of definition and thought around what their experience platform is going to look like. And the answer is, which should resonate if you hear nothing else with all of you, is that as long as you're on a relatively up-to-date version in your repository, in your on-premise or cloud environment, you're going to have access to use Highland Experience. So it's a really, really exciting definition for me that they came out with, that you don't have to do anything except start to understand, which we as consultants can help you with, the value in this, and it can be applied against your own on-premise repositories. So again, back to this, the intelligent content automation story starts with IDP. This was called in a couple sessions, I think, the rainbow to profits for our clients, that this is the way that they can move through a succession of activities and start to begin to apply Highland Experience, which is equating to a lot of the artificial intelligence and BPA types of technologies. If you want to go ahead and advance, unless you had anything here, Eric, the two main pieces of experience are made of Insight and Automate. Insight is applying that generative AI technology to extract and provide business intelligence right on the very content in your repositories. This has unbelievable application. Things were talked about like in healthcare, clinical trials, medical journals, predicting seasonal or potential outbreaks of viruses and disease. It really has massive application. The same holds true with claims processing or in government, where there is so much information that you can start to look at fraud detection and other leading indicators from things that would be applied based on Insight. So really exciting solution to being brought. The Experience Automate is more of a business process automation and orchestration engine that can be applied again against the on-premise repository. It will work with RPA to try to review existing processes, analyze changes, and then recommend changes that for the embetterment of that content. So, Experience and Automate are two products that were announced. They are now entering into early adoption phase with a limited customer set, and March of 2024 they are scheduled for general release. So more to come on that. But Eric, did you have anything that you gleaned that you want to add to that?
Well, I'll tie it into this last piece, John, just from a time perspective, because I think it connects back to it, right? As John and I just talked about, right? John first started talking about Highland Intelligent Document Processing. Then I talked about Highland RPA. Then we just talked about Highland Experience Insight, Highland Experience Automate. In none of those words did we just talk about OnBase like we did at the beginning of the session today. And as we see that, you know, part of that is Highland is growing. Highland is a different Highland than it was when a lot of you first bought OnBase. When I first started there, you know, 18, 19 years ago, right? It's a different world than we were in back then. And a lot of us started just with, at the bottom there, with content management. Then we got into process automation with workflow and workview. And now we're on this step up. And one of the things that John and I really talked about, and I think it was collectively our biggest takeaway, is that it's exciting to see this level of innovation and growth inside of Highland. But the need for us to be your partner in this is bigger than it's ever been, right? Because there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of strategy that needs to go into this of, when do I use this tool? When is the right thing to look at this? How do I look at my business and apply the right technology at the right time? That was a lot easier to do when it was like, oh, do I need that module, right? Oh, could I add this, right? That was an easy conversation a lot of times. This is a very different world, and we want to be there to help you navigate it. I know in the past we've done, you know, customer briefings or workshops. That is something you are going to see from John's team and our team on throughout all of this next year, is getting in front of you to talk about this. Because this isn't going to be just webinars. This is going to be sit down, have a conversation, and these aren't sales calls. These are, we want to be your partner in this. We want to educate you. We want to have collaborative business conversations on, you've made this investment in OnBase. We see where Highland's going. How can we figure out for you to get the most value out of it and build that plan, build that roadmap, so that we're giving you the right support you need and getting the best of what Highland now has to offer. And I know, John, you had some more to share on that as well.
Well, I was just saying, no, I think you've said it very well. You can probably drop the mic on that one. The only addition I would have, aside from the importance now of us strategically aligning with our clients and making sure that they understand the value that has been brought about with this innovation from their on-base investment, but also, you know, again, where we started and kind of sprinkled in throughout this session. Please, if you need help justifying going to CommunityLIVE, let us know. My team is here as your ambassadors. Eric calls his as Sherpas. We want to assist you in any way we can, because we believe wholeheartedly this is super valuable to our clients, and we want to come out on site and help you. We want to do these sessions, but take it upon yourselves to get to CommunityLIVE next year and let us know if there's any justification help you need with your management team. So that's all I have.
And to that end, right, so I just wanted to leave you all with that, right, is that, you know, CommunityLIVE, the date is already set for 24. So as John said, now's the time to start budgeting for it. It's not next week, right? It's now. Get it in your budgets now, so that it's not a surprise when, oh yeah, I should try to go to that event, right? Have it budgeted, have it planned, get the T&E all structured for it. Because as you can see, there's a lot of information that's going to be there, but it's also, again, those experiences we talked about, the opportunity to interact with your i3 team and with each other as customers. So we definitely want to make sure we get even more people. It'll be on the East Coast this year, down at the Gaylord National Resort, just outside of DC at the National Harbor. So we've never done it there. We've done obviously a lot of other Gaylord properties, so really excited for a new venue and a new place for our customers to explore. So with that, John, I think we covered it. So we'll throw it back to Julie.
I think you nailed it. Thanks for including me.
Yeah. This is great. I want to thank both of you, Eric Willis and John Kenyon, for sharing your insight with us. Thanks for joining us, all of you out there on the other side of the screen, for today's conversation. Again, mark your calendars. Join us, please, at CommunityLIVE 2024. It is September 22nd through the 26th, and it is, as Eric mentioned, at the Gaylord National at National Harbor in Maryland, and I really hope we'll see you there. On behalf of the legacy ImageSoft and CuriWorks teams, who are now proudly part of i3 Verticals, I thank each of you for your time and have a great day.
Thanks all.
Yeah.